Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Matteson, Emeritus Physics Professor. I'm glad to be able to visit with you via this electronic means and share some of my nearly 30 years of experience as an instructor. In 2010, I was honored to have been designated a UNT Distinguished Teaching Professor. And since I've been at this gig for over 25 years, I hope that I can help you who are newer to the game benefit from some of my own experience and what I have observed from observing others. And when it comes to experience, I'm reminded of the exchange between Barney Fife and Sheriff Andy in the TV series Mayberry RFD. Barney came into the office one day and said, "Sheriff Andy, how do you get good judgment?" Experience. "But Sheriff, how do you get experience?" Poor judgment. So I am experienced, and it seems such a pity to waste so much pain. I hope that you are not alone while watching this video, since it works best when we work together. Assuming there are several of you out there today, let's get comfortable with one another and with those whom we will be working. Please turn to your neighbor and greet them. If they came into the room as strangers to you, then introduce yourself. Take this opportunity to get to know a little better the people with whom you're sitting. You have 45 seconds, so please do now. I'll wait for you. You have 10 seconds. Thank you. Let me have your attention. Well, part of my philosophy of teaching is that we learn best most often as part of a community. We want to become a learning community in each of our classrooms. Today is no exception. Knowing your instructor's name is helpful. I often say that we are on a first-name basis in my classroom. Only my students must remember that my first name is Doctor. That's supposed to be a joke. Now, humor is not only permitted in our classrooms, it is encouraged, even though it is sometimes off point, but should be on point, and as long as it's not negative. I would like to know your name too. I have an idea. In the interest of time, let's do this by parallel processing. On the count of 3, I want all of you to shout out your first name. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That did not work very well. But through the magic of time reverse technology, I caught a few names, John, Mary, and Lisa. But I missed so much. And this is my first point. Not every way of doing something is effective. And statements of teaching philosophy are no exception. How many of you have ever written such a document? All right, raise your hand. Look around. See how few? See how many? The important point is you're not alone. I hope that after today, you will have the beginnings of one that will make your instruction more meaningful, more satisfying, and more effective. Let's begin by thinking about the reason we are here today. Why do we need a statement of philosophy? One very pragmatic reason that such statements of teaching philosophy are often required of teachers in higher education. And since we must engage in such an exercise, perhaps we should make the best of it and get something that will help us succeed. I always like to subvert what can be drudgery to more useful ends, if possible. A second point, I found that beginning with the end in mind, with apologies to Stephen Covey, is an excellent way to achieve a task. If you do not know where you're going, any direction will do. On the other hand, why not do certain things with confidence? Number 3, moreover, if we have a clearly thought out philosophy, day-to-day decisions are easier to make. For example, if you value the way your students feel about the subject, you will choose activities that promote a positive effect. Number 4, I have also found that when I reflect seriously about a topic or activity, I do a better job than when I do it offhand. And 5, I have also found that teaching is a process, an iterative process. The first time we teach a class is not the best that we can do. When we have a second chance, we can do better if we learn from that experience. And fortunately for some, every time is like the first time because they did not assess how well they measured up to their own expectations. Since I am a visually wired person and visual metaphor speaks loudly to me, I offer this metaphor. Why does an instructor need a considered statement of teaching philosophy? Well, for the same reason the ship needs a rudder, not for show alone, because by the rudder one may avoid catastrophe. Otherwise, one is adrift. Ultimately, one may run aground. Thus, I contend that a statement of philosophy is worth the effort. Today, I hope to help you begin to write one that you can actually use. Speaking of philosophy, note what Aristotle is reported to have said. Those who know do, a statement we have heard before. But this is an oft-quoted and disparaging truncation of what the great philosopher actually said, and is quite the opposite of his point. The rest of the quote is, those who understand teach. Understanding, both of your discipline and of your students, is key to becoming a successful teacher. So why have a statement of philosophy? Listen to the conversation between Alice and the Cheshire Cat. Which road do I take? Says Alice. Where do you want to go? I don't know, Alice answered. Then said the cat, it doesn't matter. As they say at the racetrack, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. Please respond to this prompt. What do you think is the most important factor in your relationship with your students? Now think, you have 15 seconds. Do I hear moans out there? Now, to keep you honest with me, and more importantly with yourself, write it down. Have you captured your thought? Turn to your new BFF, and each of you share your response. Go ahead. What a convivial group you are. I can even hear it here. Let's hear some of your responses. I'd like for you to appoint a facilitator to moderate your sharing of your answers. Pause the video while you share. I'll see you again in a few minutes. Thanks for the break. Glad to be back. So let's get practical. How do we formulate and document a useful statement of teaching philosophy? What I propose is more than a little out of the ordinary. A tripartite presentation. I, the doctor, recommend that you articulate your philosophy in 3 stages. First, state a general principle, as we have before us here. Then, succinctly explain what you mean by that principle. Finally, and I believe most importantly, state a resolve to which adherence to this principle compels you. I express these as bullet points. My statement of philosophy has met with appreciation. However, if you are required to write a continuous narrative, use the bullet points as an outline, a topic sentence, development, conclusion, paragraph by paragraph. The important thing is to think about what is important to you and what it means to you and what difference it will make in your practice. Otherwise, the exercise is futile. Now let's examine a concrete example. Incidentally, this comes from my statement of teaching philosophy. The first general principle that I hold is that the primary role of an effective teacher is serving his students. The explication follows. Because I'm a follower of Jesus of Nazareth and am persuaded of the ethic that he espouses in the Gospels, and if I'm consistent and integrated as a person, then that ethic must manifest itself in my work and relationship to the people I encounter. In fact, my mission statement that I invite you to read on my university website is doulete, which means to serve in Koine Greek, that is common first century Greek, the language of the New Testament. As I explained on my home page, I seek to serve my fellow earth dweller in imitation of Jesus Christ, who said, "I come not to be served, but to serve." As one who has found meaningful answers to life's most enduring questions in the life and teaching of an itinerant rabbi of the first century Judea, I desire to help others to find inner peace and fulfillment as humans. But that is my mission statement based on my philosophy. I encourage you to think about your philosophy of life, of learning and teaching, and integrate them as much as you can. I also recommend that you couple closely what you will do to that which you are persuaded. Let's get to work. The prompt is this: choose one general principle of teaching to reflect upon. Think now. You'll have 30 seconds. That's 15 seconds. Keep thinking. Okay, stop thinking. No, not really, of course I mean that. Just write down your thought. Take a minute to do that. Now, share your thoughts with your partner. Each of you sharing. Take a few seconds apiece to do that. You have 30 seconds to do that. Finish that thought now. Time's just about up. Okay, pause the video and share your work with the group. Facilitator, please start me up again when the discussion is concluded. I'll see you soon. Thanks for coming back. I want to congratulate you on good work. I think that you're making progress toward formulating a useful document. Now, here are a few thinks to consider while you construct your statement. No, that's not a typo. Consider the following. First of all, engagement is an important issue. As Woody Allen has said, 80% of success is showing up. But if your students are only present in body and not in mind, learning is not likely to occur. Another important point, teaching and learning can be informed by neuroscience and psychology. We now know much more about how humans learn today than we did when my teachers or even your teachers tried to teach you. They often were modeling the uninformed practices of their teachers. Another point I found useful and encourage you to consider is the discovery of fallacious constructs is a worthwhile pursuit. Perhaps the first task we have as instructors is to help students demolish the wrong-headed ideas they come to class with, such as folk etymologies and fables they have inherited from pulp culture, for example. Another thing to think about that is part of my philosophy, and I encourage you to consider, is that you are the coach, not the nurse. You see, knowledge is not a substance we pour into our students' ears, but rather it's a mental state that we guide our students to construct for themselves. We do not feed our students, we exercise them to develop intellectual muscle and sinew. But wait, there's more, to quote the late night shopping channel. Consider the following also. Teaching is a craft. The good news is that while some are born with great aptitude for teaching, we all can learn to do it well. And even the most gifted, intuitive teachers can improve. In addition, ideas are important. Love your discipline passionately. Share it passionately. Ideas are like mental fire that can warm the cold experience of life and give energy when all other resources fail. The life of the mind is the fullness of being human. But remember, another point, that knowledge is constructed by the learner. The learner must take some responsibility to build her knowledge. You realizing that that is the case will cause you to devise activities that create opportunities for this to happen. An important point to me is truthfulness. I say that it's essential. The principle is a bedrock of my philosophy. Even if I must simplify an application to make the topic accessible to my students, particularly in introductory courses, I do so with caveats to the student that there is more and delightfully subtle applications yet to master. I sometimes say to my students, I will not lie to you. This is simplified. I try to refrain from all fallacious syllogisms. The correct answer, I contend, for the wrong reasons is an error as much as the wrong answer for no reason at all. Continue further the following. Planning is important. It is insufficient merely to have mastery of the material. One must have a plan of attack to guide the student's thinking and to help them gain mastery of the knowledge you share. Additionally, technology is a useful tool. Technology can get in the way of learning, or it can empower it. The test is, and I have had it come when the technology fails, can you still communicate without the technology? Another point that you'll find in my philosophy, people learn best by different means. Now, there is a filter in the professorate for those who really love their subject passionately. And for that reason, I became a university professor. I once thought that all people thought and learned as I, but years of teaching have disabused me of that fallacy. Few, if any, I have found, learn or think as I. I am a random, visual, auditory, spatial learner, which makes me pretty unique. There's a few like me, but very few. And I contend there are probably just a few in your class who are exactly like you. My final point is that the teacher must be a perpetual learner. To be current and to be honest and to stay fresh, the teacher must always be a student himself. Well, I hope these comments will be useful to you as you forge your own philosophy. Remember, in general, to 1, state the principle, 2, explain what that means, and 3, resolve to let it shape your practice. I suspect as you review it periodically, as I have, you will see it evolve and grow. That is how my statement has become over 20 points. Now, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the great help I have received from a master teacher of my acquaintance, Carolyn Matteson. She's a retired master teacher and adjunct professor of English, who every Tuesday evening for several years helped 20 or so pre-service English language arts and world language teachers become the best instructors that they could be in their capstone course. I'd also like to thank Dr. Bidishaw Malik, formerly a philosophy graduate at TF, who was for a few weeks, a year, was my coffee partner, and who fearlessly put into practice things that we talked about today. She has most generously shared with me her successes and her disappointments. And we have found that teaching is an iterative process. We will improve with practice if we do it reflectively and creatively. We must not be like the amateur bluegrass player who remarked to me once, we practice and practice and hope to get better. But additionally, one must be courageous. It helps me to remember that our activity is about helping our students learn. It's not about meeting our ego needs. I thank you so much for your attention, and I sincerely wish you the very greatest success.